Welcome to the overall summary for Guitar Fundamentals 2. Congratulations and thumbs up on making it this far. You definitely deserve a pat on the back and a way to go. The Guitar Fundamentals 2 course covered a lot of material, and this is your chance to go back over it real quickly, to have a brief recap or review, and test your knowledge and skills. We started all the way back in Chapter 1 of Guitar Fundamentals 2 course with an introduction to music theory. We started talking about intervals, started talking about the fact that an interval is the basic unit of measurement in music, and we measure them in half steps, whole steps, 7/2. We measure intervals in the distance from one note to another note. We built intervals then into a scale, specifically the C major scale. We also built the A minor scale, as well as the contrasting C minor scale. So you had a C major and a C minor scale to contrast. We talked about basic picking techniques so that you learned how to downstroke as well as upstroke, and how to combine them in alternate picking. Then, armed with your new scales and your scale knowledge and your picking technique, we talked about some basic scale exercises so that you can get some practice at playing individual notes in the form of scales. In the next chapter, Chapter 2, we started talking about minor chords. We added a list of 3 minor chords, A minor, D minor, and E minor, to your list of 7 major chords that you already knew. Then we started mixing and matching all of those chords. We took your A through G major chords and mixed and matched some of those guys with our new minor chords. So we had various groups of those that we provided backing tracks for, and you should definitely remember all of those and be able to play them. We also had some really neat lessons on switching back and forth between them efficiently, the mechanics of how to use little tips and tricks that can help you either use fingers that don't have to move, or make sure that you have very efficient motion between any given chord so that there's not a lot of wasted motion, and so that you can get from one chord to the next efficiently in time, be able to play music more successfully. We moved on to Chapter 3 to talking about combining scales and chords. In Chapter 1 we talked about scales, in Chapter 2 we talked about chords, in Chapter 3 we combined them so that you learn the idea that we can take the notes of a scale. For example, we took the C major scale to start with, and play them as a chord, as a group of notes together, or we can use them individually to link 2 or more chords together. We also use the A major scale to link the A major chord and the G major chord and the E major chord. We also use the A minor scale to link the A minor chord to the D minor chord and down to the E minor chord. So, we had a lot of interesting ideas about how to combine the individual notes of scales with the multi-group notes of chords, and specific exercises on how to do it. We moved on to Chapter 4, in which we learned the basics of reading music notation so that you could be literate in the language of music, so that you understood all of the symbols that you encounter when you see a piece of sheet music. You understood what the treble clef is, what those lines and spaces are. When you put dots on a line, it's "every good boy does fine." When you put a dot on a space, it's F-A-C-E, face, on the spaces, so that you understand where those notes are on the treble clef and where they are physically found and relate to graphically on a piece of paper and then physically on the guitar. You also learn basics of rhythmic notation so that you understand how to subdivide the beats, how to count measures and time signatures, and then how the whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note system works along with the rests. We described a basic introduction to the other aspects of reading music notation. For example, the tempo, the phrasing, the dynamics, and other various aspects that are important so that you get an introduction to the ideas and the skill of reading music notation so that you're literate in reading music. Next, we moved on to chapter 5, which we played some simple songs. We took some of our knowledge of individual notes and of chords, and we took our knowledge of reading music and we put it all together and played some simple tunes. We played a blues tune so that you got the 12-bar blues introduction. That little blues riff that's fun to play. Back towards the A, D, back at A, and back over to E. And then some little riffs in between them. As well as the turnaround idea. We also did the public domain song House of the Rising Sun. We had two versions. Remember, we did the simple chord strumming version where you simply had to strum the chord on the downbeat of the measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We also did a slightly more complex version in which we did chord arpeggiation. We held the chord shape, but we picked each note or string at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then moved to the next chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, next chord, and so forth, all the way through all the chords, so that you had a second way to play House of the Rising Sun. After House of the Rising Sun, we jumped ahead to learning the rest of the minor chords. We did B minor, C minor, F minor, and G minor. After introducing those chords, how those shapes work, why they work, then we got right to work putting them in chord groups with a bunch of other chords, and you had a bunch of chords to practice. So that we had various groups of chords that you had to play along with backing tracks so that you got good practice at all 7 A, B, C, D, E, F, and G major chords and minor chords, and mixing various combinations of them. At that point, you had all of the basic chords down. Moving on to chapter 7, we talked about scales, practicing scales, and using a metronome. We showed you the Guitar Tricks metronome, which you have at your disposal, which is a great tool. Talked about why it's important to use a metronome as an objective timekeeping device, so that an objective reference point is at your disposal so that you know that you're playing in time, in rhythm, with whatever scale or chord progression or song you're supposed to be playing. You're doing it properly, in time, in rhythm. We talked about the basics of scale practice. Obviously that it's not music in and of itself, but it's really good as a skill building technique physically to play scales, get your fingers, get them under your grasp, and so that you're getting used to the sound in your mind and your ear of what that scale, all those notes, how they sound. Those are the building blocks of music, of melodies, of solos, of any given piece of music. They use scales to some degree. They use notes. It's very important to be able to know those sounds and be able to reproduce them at will. So, in that chapter we talked about using a metronome, using it to practice scales, and using it to practice scales in various patterns. We isolated 4 straight up and down, in groups of 3s and 4s, and in pedal point. All of them are very, very good and useful examples that you should definitely know and be able to do. Knowledge and skills. Finally, we wind up at Chapter 8 with bar chords. Bar chords are very, very difficult, but incredibly useful. They open up the entire fretboard for your use so that you can play any given chord in the chromatic series of notes. So there's 12 chromatic notes, all the 7 letters, A through G, and then the various sharps and flats, the accidentals, in between the natural notes. Once you got a handle on how to play the E and A style bar chords on all of the frets between 0 and 12, then you had a way to play every major chord in 2 different ways. That means 12 times 2, 24, and every minor chord. Once you understood how to play the E minor bar chord shape and the A minor bar chord shape on all 12 frets, then you get in your mind and your eye, you visualize where all those letters are on the E and the A strings on the 12th fret. You're good to go. You can play any given major or minor chord that is thrown at you in any piece of music. It's a lot of information and it's a lot of stuff to be able to do. But it's definitely worth it to be able to say that you know it and you can do it. Finally, a word of congratulations from me. Congratulations. Well done. Good job. And a word of encouragement. You made it this far. You've got nothing but great stuff ahead of you in anything that you do with the guitar, and especially with Guitar Tricks courses and Guitar Tricks lessons. We hope to see you in future lessons. Congratulations again from all of us at Guitar Tricks. Have fun playing the guitar.